we will ask for another teammate of yours to continue your speech. However, for the speech just now, you can start again. Okay, wait.
Undrags ka. Kita buat.
Kita ada salah sebut Lebih dengan
Vaccinated.
Vaccinated.
Hamirul?
Yes. Sorry. So I hope everything's fine.
Yes, we can. Everything's fine now.
So
Wait. Okay, so calling out for the. Are you ready, Hamirul? Are you prepared?
Yeah.
Okay, so calling out for the first speaker from the government team. You can start your speech whenever you are ready.
So the debate will start in 3, 2, 1. A very good morning to adjudicators, members of the House, and respectful opponents from the opposition side. So we, the government team, are strongly believe and also agree with the motions that this House will implement an anti-vaccine tax on parents who refuse to vaccinate their children. Why? So what is anti-vaccine tax, ladies and gentlemen? So anti-vaccine tax are the amount of money paid to the government by these anti-vax parents when they refuse to vaccinate their children. So the tax implemented upon these parents will be based on their economical status in order to not overly burden those of lower or middle class economy, while also giving their consequences to parents of higher class economy. So who's involved in this debate, ladies and gentlemen? So the stakeholders involved are those children, anti-vax parents, and also the government themselves. So the status quo right now. So anti-vax people are not allowed in public premises and such to avoid worsening the conditions of the COVID-19 pandemic currently plaguing our world at a global scale. So what is the problem within this status quo, ladies and gentlemen? So despite increasing restrictions against anti-vaxxers, a lot of anti-vaxxers, especially parents, will refuse to receive the vaccine and allow their children to receive them, despite their children being vulnerable in this situation. So thus, our most vulnerable stakeholders are these children whose choices in this stage of life and dictated by their parents, despite potentially being detrimental to their experience and growth. So why is it good, ladies and gentlemen? So the taxes can be used for development of the country by helping wide range of society, which is vulnerable to the people. So research in-depth background, these children will undergo checks up to ensure that they are healthy or safe enough to get vaccine to avoid negative side effects on those with certain disease or allergies. So since according to the status quo, there are already laws implemented against these anti-vaxxers. The addition of the taxes will further give them reason to get vaccine, especially for the sex of the most vulnerable stakeholders in this situation, which are the children whose choices are often made by the parents while also not violating their rights to choose to receive the vaccine or not. So the metric of the debate, ladies and gentlemen, is the whether taxes should be implemented upon anti-vax parents who refuse to vaccinate their children or not, and why is this justifiable. So my first arguments why anti-vax are benefits in order to get those children to be vaccinated. So with those anti-vax tax, it will rushing those parents to get their children to be vaccinated. So imagine if their children are not been vaccinated. Of course, they will not go to school. They will not interact with other children out there, and this will stop the developing of the children themselves. So they will not enjoy the childhood life because they are being alone in their home. They are being stuck in their home. So if the children are get vaccinated, of course they will go to school and learn with other children. And I knew that we have online class right now, but are those online class are effective for the children who need physically learning? Of course, if those children are get vaccinated, of course they will go to school and interact with their friends and will enjoy their childhood. And secondly, why the vaccines are important for those children? Because immunizations can save our child's life. Because in advances in medical science, our children can be protected against more diseases than ever before. Some diseases that once injured or killed thousands of children have been eliminated completely, and others are close to extinction, primarily due to safe and effective of vaccines. So we know that vaccines are very safe and effective. So vaccines are only given to the children after a long and careful review by the scientists. So those anti-vax parents who deny the effectiveness of scientists should have the knowledge of the effectiveness of the
Your
scientists
eyesight.
of the vaccine. So vaccines are only given to the children after a long and careful review by the scientists, doctors, and healthcare professionals. Vaccines will involve some discomfort and may cause pain. I know will cause pain, redness, or tenderness at the site of injections, but this is minimal compared to the pain that the children get if they've been affected by COVID-19. Yes, PI.
Okay, Prime Minister, can you please explain to the House how can you prove that the taxation will actually motivate or rush the parents to vaccinate their children?
You guys here.
Of course, for example, let me give you example of B40 families. If they know about this anti-vax tax, of course, they will feel encouraged to get vaccinated because why? Where do they get the money in order to pay those taxes? Of course, those rich family are can afford those taxes. But if they want the children to have a good development like other children out there who already been vaccinated, then is it good for their children, for those rich families' children to get vaccinated? So I answered your PR already, and now we will go to the worst case scenario that we, the government side, will have. So the worst case scenario, this might economically burden families who are already struggling with the economical status. But this problem is already tackled prior to implementing these taxes. A background check on the economical status will be done. And also the best case scenario that oppositions will have as a compare, restrictions against anti-vaxxers will be stated in our current status quo with less of dents in the economy of these anti-vax families, but they will have lesser reasons to allow their children to receive these vaccines, which will definitely be detrimental for their children as they will not be able to attend school, go to public spaces, and so on. So with that, I would like to propose. Thank you.
Okay, good. Here. Okay, thank you for your speech. First speaker from government team. Now moving on to the opposition team. Of the first speaker of the opposition team, you may start your speech whenever you are ready.
Excuse me, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Excuse me. Before that, sorry for interrupt. Why my second speaker and my third speaker can't see the opposition side and cannot hear them?
We're not added.
Hello?
You know, edit.
Can you
Pardon?
hear
Yeah,
us?
they are not. They are not. Yeah, they are not in this live session right now.
It said that they are at the
What?
backstage.
Can you try sharing your
Yeah,
device?
they are at the backstage.
Backstage.
Yeah.
This link has a backstage room, you mean?
Yeah, they're in backstage right now, and they are not
Timekeeper,
in this
do you
live
know?
session.
The host may add
Okay, wait.
to the broadcast at any
Yeah, it says that only the host can see you. The host may add you to the broadcast at any time. So it's what it say at my second and third speaker computer right now.
Timekeeper, are you the host for this link? I can't seem to see the background.
Sorry, but I can't see their name in the backstage room.
Would it be okay if they tried to re-enter?
Can sure. They already re-entered and still in the same situation right now.
Do you think that they entered the right link?
They entered the right link. Is it English Sidang 1 Pusingan 1? Is it that?
Yeah. But
Yeah,
I
they
can see. Okay, I can see their name
okay.
on the backstage room.
Amirul, try to give them this link. See if they can enter this specific link.
All right. I'll
Chat. How is it? Can they enter? Okay, good.
yeah, my deputy prime minister already entered.
Is your third speaker available here?
Already.
Okay. So is it okay if we start now? Okay. So here I would like to call upon the Deputy Prime Minister for the opposition team. You may begin your speech whenever you are ready.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Owen, could you please mute your mic?
Okay, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. So it is truly saddening to see that side of government here has been very contradicting with the case. And I say that, and I will prove this later in my speech. But before that, I would like to wish a good morning to everyone here. And I, as the leader of opposition, will be doing three things in my speech today. Firstly, I will be rebutting the points given by the Prime Minister. Secondly, I will be giving out our own definition of what's the case right now. And thirdly, I will be giving one argument under our side. Okay. So, firstly, rebuttals. As I said in my opening speech, how contradicting the government are with themselves. Okay. So, just now, my deputy leader of opposition made a POI, asked the Prime Minister about how, ask them to prove how actually taxing will motivate these parents to vaccinate their children. And he replied with, okay, we will, he said the B40, they will have to pay, and how they are already hard in their life already and to pay more money. But then what they have said in their mechanism, they said that the money they pay will be based on the financial condition of the parents. So we think that this is very contradicting and this makes no sense at all. So if you were to put money to make the money they have to pay the taxes according to the financial position, we think that it is not enough of an incentive for them to actually it's not justifiable enough for them to put these taxes to push them in the direction of vaccinating their children. So we think that that case falls completely. Okay. Secondly is that they said that they talked about how with the money they get from taxes, they can fix economy and put money in every other sectors. We think that this is actually a very, very wrong thing to do. It's a very bad thing. The role of the state here, we have to keep in mind that the role of the state here is to protect its citizens, not what they're trying to do here. Based on what they're saying, all these taxes, is that they're trying to profit off these anti-vaccination people, and we think that this is something very unethical. It's not a right thing to do, because in our side, okay. Moving on to my this will tie into my our mechanism on our side. Okay, so in our mechanism, we come up to you with a counter proposal saying that we want to mandate, not just put taxes, we want to mandate the vaccination of children. Okay, so how would we do this? Firstly, we would mandate everyone to vaccinate their children, except for certain cases, such as children who are immunocompromised, meaning that when they take this vaccine, they will become worse than they already are. And this is something that the government has not pointed out, showing that they do not actually know the real situation of some children. They assume all children are fine and healthy. We think that this is not the case as well. Okay, so how would a picture of this mandation look like? Okay, basically, when we mandate vaccination on children, we will not allow them to go to places that are in the open, such as what is being used in Malaysia right now, such as My Sejahtera. Like, if you do not have the vaccine, you cannot go into any outlets, cannot go to restaurants, cannot go to shopping malls or whatever. We think that this is a much better way to mandate them, to push them forward, because they have to think the best for their children. Okay, we think that when we restrict them, they will have that incentive to push forward to actually vaccinate the children, not by taxing, because taxing, just now as I said, the way the government has brought up the case, saying that it's based on financial status, we think that that is not enough of an incentive to actually push them forward. So we think that mandating here is a much better solution. So what is our stance here today? We, on the opposition side, we also want, we agree with whatever the first speaker said just now in his argument. All he said was vaccination is important, vaccination is good. But we think that this is something that we also agree with. So that is to say that whatever the Prime Minister has said something very not useful in this debate today. Okay, so moving on. Okay, why would we want to mandate? What's the dire need for us to mandate this anti-vaccination? Why would we go to the lengths of mandation? Because, okay, firstly, as I said just now, when we tax people, okay, so we will issue this digital justification for children in the app or whatever we will monitor them through. For those who are immunocompromised, as we said just now. Okay, so moving forward. Okay, so as I said just now, taxing here, we think that mandating is necessary in this case because when you apply a tax to these people who are not vaccinating their children, we think that it actually gives them the opportunity to choose to not vaccinate their children. Because if you as the government, you put the tax or something and they pay for the tax, we think that this is okay, so then they pay with the tax, then no more, done. We don't have to vaccinate our children. But when we mandate here, we will create this sorry, we will not create any loopholes here, so that parents will actually are obligated and mandatory for them to actually go to and vaccinate their children. So we think that that is why we will go the lengths of making it mandatory instead of just taxing. Okay, so after that, we also think that taxing is good because we also think taxing is not good enough, because when we tax, because like as I said just now, taxing as in their policy just now, it is not strong enough to justify for them to actually go to the parents to actually to actually vaccinate children, because the amount they pay is not enough to make them feel bad to pay that much, because it is based on their financial status. So we think that in this case, it is justified for us to mandate it instead of just taxing, because taxing is not enough for these people to go and give them incentive to vaccinate their children. And with that, I've never been prouder to oppose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your speech. Here. Moving on, I would like to invite the second speaker from the government team to deliver their speech. You may start whenever you are ready.
Hello, am I audible?
You're audible. Is it okay if you open your camera, or is the connection not okay? Okay,
All right,
thank
one
you.
second.
Owen, are you audible? I don't think you're audible.
Hello, am I audible?
Okay, now you are.
Yeah? Okay, my bad. All right. So I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. So before I move on to my arguments, I'll start with my rebuttals. So their deputy leader of opposition started by saying, we are contradicting our case, and how, giving based on the PI of how how is taxing actually going to motivate the parents, because we have an economical, what do you call it? We're taxing them based on their economical status, and it's not a high enough incentive to encourage them. And he stated that they are mandating staying at home instead, as it would, it'll be a better option. It'll be more given more incentive. He also mentioned, how it is that imposing taxes to these parents give them a choice to choose whether to vaccinate their children. But if you think about, and they mentioned, about whereas they mandate staying at home, they will create a loophole and mandate and make it mandatory to vaccinate their children. How exactly is that so? Because you think about it, even their parents will have a choice to let their children stay at home, right? If they don't want to get vaccinated. So isn't that in itself a choice as well for them to choose? How is that? How is it actually more encouraging, more making it more mandatory compared to taxes? But whereas on taxes, as my prime minister has mentioned, it is more of an incentive, because it will encourage them, because they don't want to pay taxes. If like those who are, they will, don't want to waste their finance, their economy on paying these additional taxes just over something that can actually be more beneficial, not only for them, not only for their safety, for their finance, but also for society as a whole, for those around them whenever they're going out into the public. Because as we know, this COVID-19 pandemic is a very serious and health detrimental situation. They also defined it with how they should mandate those who mandate everyone to vaccinate except for those who are immunocompromised. Um, and yes, we agree that those children who are immunocompromised, should get a checkup in order to make sure they're healthy to before getting vaccinated. And if they're not, then obviously it's best to stay at home. But that's the minority. But they also believe that vaccinating makes them stay at home. But they believe that taxing is not a good incentive, and that we are profiting from these taxes instead of actually protecting the state. But I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that we're not profiting for our own good, but it's actually for the good of the state. And I will elaborate further in my arguments. So before that, my prime minister, mentioned how obviously this vaccination is important because it can be used for the development of the country, helping a wide range of society vulnerable people, which I'll further elaborate as well. And he also mentioned how it is important for the future of the children because we are our vulnerable stakeholders of today's debate. Obviously, we have the parents, the government, but especially the children, because we are debating. They are innocent. They're still at a young age where they don't have, they don't know any better. They don't know their rights to get vaccinated. They don't know how to protect themselves, and their choices and decisions are being dictated by their parents. So, moving on to my first point, my argument is that these anti-vaccination taxes will not only ensure the safety of these children, ensuring a future for them, but it'll also be better for the country as a whole, as it will be beneficial for the economy. How is this so? So, obviously we know this COVID-19 pandemic, it has, changed our lives in many ways. Most families and children, are obviously our main stakeholders of today's debate. And the government has, obviously there has been initiatives to approach the curve of the socioeconomic impacts of the pandemic on this population. However, we know that many families are still suffering economically in this current pandemic. So by imposing these anti-vaccination taxes, we're not only encouraging these parents to vaccinate their children, which is a good incentive, and it's the main motion of today's debate. But as I said, it's also we're not profiting for it, but we're also helping our country, they're helping the state, benefiting the economy as a whole, as these money again from these taxes are actually going to be used to help these group of people who are suffering economically in our status quo, and obviously help rebuild the economy, which is lost throughout the pandemic. Because obviously we know there are a lot of people with low financial statuses that are losing jobs and suffering economically and financially. But so these taxes, that are being imposed, these money isn't just going to go taken away. We're not stealing from anyone. We're actually giving back by benefiting the economy, helping those restart their livelihood, because the COVID-19, this pandemic, has really affected everyone in so many ways, economically, socially, and so on. And so of course you're going to be wondering, what about those already financially unstable people, right? How are they supposed to afford these taxes? So obviously, as my prime minister has mentioned earlier, they're going to be taxed based on their economical status. And obviously, you may argue that it is not a strong incentive enough. But if you think about it, is staying at home really a good incentive? As proposed by their leader of opposition, because comparing like needing to pay something and just having being forced to stay at home, how long can you really stay at home? Obviously you need to go out eventually, right? So by imposing this tax, which will more like rush them, as my prime minister said, like encourage them to get vaccinated, and it'll be more a better incentive, we believe, on our side, as it'll also be able to realize the importance of getting vaccinated for the future of their children, so that they'll be able to go to schools, they'll be able to just study better. Because obviously we know that children, as schools are actually reopening, group by group, they're going back to physical classes. So what about those who aren't being vaccinated? They're just being the minority, being left out, staying in these four corners of their walls at home, because they can't go to school because their parents do not want to be vaccinated. So by imposing these taxes, we're encouraging those parents to vaccinate those children so that they are able to go to school to get the quality education they deserve to become future leaders of the country, and which is important, as they are the next generation of our country. Furthermore, we all also obviously we are taxing based on economical status because we want to ensure that those who are already suffering economically not to go through more financial problems, and obviously they'll be put forward to developing the countries. And maybe the opposition might argue about it is human right and whatnot to get vaccinated, but did you know that human right is the right to be protected from harm in itself is also a human right? So by imposing these taxes, encouraging parents to vaccinate their children, we are ensuring those children have a future ahead of them, a good future, a bright future with proper education, that they are safe because as my prime minister said, been clinically proven, it's been many tests proven that vaccinations effective, its efficacy, it actually helps with the curve of COVID-19, and that will also protect those around them, the people around the children, to ensure that they are safe as well from this pandemic. And that with that, I proudly propose. Thank you.
All right, great speech. Thank you. Now, okay. Now I would like to call upon the second speaker from the opposition team. You may start whenever you are ready.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. We're starting in 3, 2, 1. Good morning to all the members of the hall. Today I will be doing two things. Number one, I will be giving my rebuttals for the whole government side's case. And then secondly, I will provide an argument as an extension to what the opposition side is trying to strive for. So without further ado, let's move on with my rebuttals. For my rebuttals, I believe that the government side has been arguing on two main issues, which is number one, the economy issue, and number two, about parents' choices. So let's try to counter them one by one. So first of all, about the economic theme. So government told us that they want to somehow use the tax for economic purposes, trying to gain benefit out of them. And they say that it's not to gain profit out of it. But if you really look at it on hindsight, you can really see that the government shouldn't be a profit-oriented organization. Obviously, healthcare is responsible for prioritizing health over money. So therefore, financial benefits shouldn't even be something to consider in this debate. And government shouldn't even set that the tax, the government also didn't explain that the tax will be used for the research of healthcare, or is it going to be used for economics in general? So if we believe that if you use it for economic purposes only, it's something that is very not necessary for the debate, because the point of the debate is to protect the people, not to somehow increase the economy. And if you want to say that you want to use it for the research purposes, this is something that the government didn't point out. So therefore, I would not consider it. So moving on to the next rebuttal, which is about parents' choices. So the government stated that on our side, we are still providing the choice to the parents, because yes, you will not be able to go to school, but you can still live at home and not interact with the outside world at all, and you can parents can still not vaccinate their children. So yes, this is a choice, but it's an absurd choice. It's something that is very unrealistic. Parents obviously want their children to go to school and become a functioning member of society. What parents wouldn't want their children to become a normal person? Would any parents want to put their children at home and not do anything at all? Obviously, by having this, So by having on our counter proposal, we are restricting the parents much better than the government side is. Yes, even though you have this absurd choice that I don't think any parents would take, it will still force the parents to actually take the let their children take the vaccination. Because if you don't give the vaccination to the children, obviously the children will not be able to strive to become someone that is better or someone that could be a functioning member of society. So even if you say that on our side, we still give a choice, like I said, we are still restricting the parents much better than the government side is, because mandatory and having to not go to school and everything is much more of a worse punishment than trying to pay a few $1,000s just to not vaccinate your children. That is all for my rebuttals. Before I move on to my arguments, yes, I'll take one POI.
So you said that these anti-vax parents will love their children and encourage them to get vaccines. But those anti-vax parents will influence their children to not get the vaccines because the children might not have knowledge about the vaccine, about the effectiveness of vaccines, and the anti-vax parents will influence them the wrong thing. So I need your response about that.
Okay, first of all, we need to be realistic here. I don't think any parents is that insane to influence their children about the vaccination thing, to influence themselves even to not take the vaccination on our side. Because obviously, in any normal circumstances, any normal parents would in fact reconsider with this situation. They know that they need to vaccinate their children in order for their children to become a functioning member of society. So it itself is actually a mandatory rule. It's something that they must do. They don't really have a choice here. So in the real world, most parents would actually consider with our policy. So let's move on with the next argument for the opposition side. So my argument is about taxation is not enough of a burden for motivating parents to vaccinate their children. So I have 3 levels of analysis. Number 1, the current status quo is not effective enough. So like I said, parents have a choice on the government side because in the current status quo, if parents are allowed to not vaccinate their children, this basically encourages them or allows them to not vaccinate their children. And this is the problem in our status quo right now. And both sides actually agree with this problem. So we want as much parents to vaccinate their children as possible. So this is the end goal for both sides. Therefore, having a system where parents are allowed to not vaccinate their children will only cause this problem to increase, and it's very difficult to counter it. So my second level of analysis, taxation is actually counterproductive and it won't really solve the current status quo. You are still because like I said, if you are giving a taxation, you are still giving a choice to the parents in a way because because the current status quo, except for the parents, they need to the reason is it's the same with the current status quo, except that you need to pay for it. That's the only difference. And if we look at it and dissect it one by one, wealthy people will not have a problem with this because obviously they can just pay whatever money they want to not vaccinate their children. And if you want to look at the non-wealthy people, they also don't have any problems with this because the government side stated that the taxation is depending on the economical status of the parents or the families. So if the parents are not wealthy enough, I don't know, they stated that they won't get taxed or maybe the tax will be much smaller. But either way, these parents will still have don't really suffer a lot from the taxation itself. Therefore, this is really proving why the taxation is counterproductive. And even if you say that it somehow increases the amount of parents to vaccinate their children, we believe that it is a tiny solution, a tiny improvement to such a huge problem. So therefore, look at on our side, which is the next analysis. Mandation is better than taxing. So like I explained and my leader of opposition have explained, the system itself needs to change in order to force parents to vaccinate their children. So by mandating it, by making sure that all parents must vaccinate their children, it removes the choice and the right of parents to vaccinate their children. And this can definitely solve the problems in the status quo because this will definitely increase the number of parents to vaccinate their children and also increases the our side will provide a more herd immunity to the people. So why is this important? So why is this argument important? So government needs to really respond to this argument because they need to prove how taxation is actually better than mandation. And opposition side also explained that this is a better solution than the taxation argument. Therefore, we need to ensure that the opposition side has to really continue on explaining why mandation is still better than taxation and it will solve the problem much better. And the government needs to also prove how taxation is better than mandation. Therefore, I rest my case. Thank you.
Okay, good speech. Thank you. Second speaker from the opposition team now would be... All right, now I would like to call upon the government third speaker, which is Shahira. You may start whenever you are ready.
Hello? Hello?
Shahira, I'm afraid you're a bit unclear. Could you please open your mask while speaking, or is it not okay?
Okay, sure. Wait. Hello? Clear?
Hello?
Hello?
Could you please hold the microphone closer to your mouth?
Okay, all right.
All right, thank you.
All right. So
Sir.
verbal POIs are acceptable. I prefer that. I will start in 3, 2, 1. Last year, the whole world long awaited for the COVID-19 vaccine as we witnessed the devastation wrought by the global pandemic. While the importance of vaccination has always been understood, these parasites in society are the ones who's bringing the national dream of herd immunity into a hold. But before that, a very good day to all. Great debate today. So, first of all, what is the aim of the debate? What is the burden of the debate? Should taxes be implemented towards parents who are not vaccinating their children? It will absolutely help all stakeholders. In our side, as the government, we are prioritizing all the stakeholders in our side. I will prove this in my further points. So minorities and majorities, we are providing a really great initiative for them, not only for these inclusive groups, but also as a whole, more effective while getting a grip upon the current status quo. Hence, we are proposing this to enforce the current status quo. We are not saying that the status quo right now is the best, but we are enforcing the status quo right now by imposing these taxes towards unvaccinated parents who do not want to vaccinate their children. So the pandemic has also highlighted that even in this world, most individualist societies, we are dependent on other people's behavior and decisions. So these parents who decided to not vaccinate their children, okay, so as our Prime Minister has stated, and that is fully emphasized on my second minister, we said there will be a background check towards these parents who do not want to vaccinate their children. Yes, mandatory mandates for these children to be vaccinated. Yes, that is a very good initiative. But ladies and gentlemen, by imposing that really, really rushed idealism of the opposition side in this vulnerable state in the world right now, that is not a really, really effective initiative for now. Because why? As we all know right now, the cases right now, they are not balanced. So by imposing this sudden initiative, it is really not effective. And they did not specify, they failed also to specify, will it be mandatory in batches or will it be mandatory for children of certain age groups, or the effects and their worst case scenario and their best case scenario if every child gets vaccinated and it's mandatory for them. What are the punishments towards those who do not vaccinate their children? Will there be jail time, or will there be any sort of punishments towards them? So they did not specify enough about this mandate they are believing in. So ladies and gentlemen, these are parents, grown-ups who decided to not vaccinate their children. So if they decided to not vaccinate their children, one, maybe they're not knowledgeable enough about the vaccines, and two, maybe they, in their own will, in their own ego, they're not vaccinating their children by their own consent. That is why we are proposing background checks before imposing these taxes. And ladies and gentlemen, these taxes will not only be catered towards the economy, like other initiatives that aren't catering towards the status quo, because based on the status quo, it's a pandemic right now. So we believe that the taxes will go to those infrastructural researchers about the pandemic right now, because it's a pandemic, it's the status quo right now. So if these parents choose to not vaccinate their children, maybe it's because of a lack of knowledge. So background checks will be done on our side to make sure that these all-rounded background checks, and we do that in a kind of caring manner, in a hand-in-hand manner, in a way that show that these people, that we respect them and listen to their opinions while proposing the best for them to take the vaccine for their children. Because in the long run, if everyone has achieved herd immunity, and these inclusive groups, these small groups, even one person can start a cluster. If these small groups decided to not vaccinate their children, because in the long run, they believe that, vaccines are not important in the future. But ladies and gentlemen, by imposing these taxes, these for our worst case scenario, like you said, it will become a choice for them, a choice for these households, these wealthy households, to agree to pay the taxes in the long run. They will be okay to not vaccinate their children, right? That's our worst case scenario in your side. But these taxes eventually will be increased, and more background checks will be done about why they do not want to agree to the vaccines towards their children. And most probably, we believe in the future when unvaxxed becomes a minority group, and they will deteriorate the current status of the pandemic. So if these unvaxxed parents, unvaxxed children are becoming a minority group, of course there will be more heavy punishments towards them in the future, because based on their beliefs or without any background knowledge or scientific knowledge, they are, based on their own ego, they do not want to vaccinate their children, because they said I do not want to vaccinate my children because I do not believe in the vaccine. They consist of all of these ingredients that I do not believe in, without any scientific research. So then constant background checks will be done. So that is why in our case, in the opposition's case, where they would mandate these vaccines towards children, they do not specify how would they mandate. So it is really an ineffective way to make sure that today the pandemic will be deterred in the future, because you did not specify, because these are towards children who do not have the power to decide, to choose. And these parents decided to not vaccinate their children because of their own ego. So a proposal of getting these taxes towards that will cater towards the development of the country in battling this pandemic, not only towards other irrelevant economic scopes and fields. So by children who cannot make choices because they are too young and are still under their parents' decisions, in the long run, where everyone obtain herd immunity, because everyone will obtain herd immunity. So these children, if they're not vaccinated, they will not go to school. Catering towards the status quo right now, if they're not vaccinated, they cannot go to school. So we, as a government side, we show to you that we are aware of the status quo, and we are proposing a new proposal to enforce the status quo right now, while being aware and proposing a new idea, so that these parents would rethink twice and think twice about their decision of their own ego to not vaccinate their children. So we are being a qualitative side right now. We are seeing it qualitatively, and not only we are imposing really rushed decisions such as the opposition side. So side with us for a better future, and side with the opposition if you want a really rushed and ineffective future for the society. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful speech. Thank you. Moving on, I would like to invite the third speaker from the opposing team. You can start your speech whenever you are ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the floor, today I would like to tell you why side opposition has already won today's debate. And before I move on to my speech, I would like to say good morning to all members of the floor. So first of all, why have we won? This is how my speech is going to go. First of all, I will tell you why we have won. Second, I will clarify what my first and second speakers have already told you in today's debate. Thirdly, I will provide the clashes that have been thrown about or has been discussed in today's debate. And the last thing, I would provide a conclusion in terms of comparison, and before that, my clashes would be integrated with some rebuttals. So first of all, I've told you, we on-site opposition have told you why we have won today. First of all, is because A, government failed to actually provide a clear problem to this debate. They have failed to really understand the spirit of the motion of today's debate. B, they failed to take into consideration all stakeholders, as my first and second speakers have already mentioned before. And C, they have failed to see the degree of harm they are actually bringing to society in their side of the debate today. And D, their case is just basically filled with inconsistencies. So moving on to my clarification. So first of all, the problem today is not about economical development as what was brought up by the Prime Minister beforehand. So today's problem is actually why is it important to implement this anti-vaccination tax on parents who actually refuse to vaccinate their children? Why is it important? So the problem today is how are we going to reduce the problem in status quo, which is we call parents not vaccinating their children, not choosing to vaccinate their children. This is the problem that we want to reduce. It's about public safety. It is about herd immunity. It's not about a financial debate as what Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister has been throwing about in the first place. So, second of all, we have been trying to engage with side government. As we know, as a debate progresses, there should be engagement. So first of all, government has failed to prove to us how taxation would reduce the problem. Whereas on our side, we have already proven to you how taxation, imposing this taxation would be counterproductive to solving or reducing the problem today, which is these people not getting vaccinated, these parents not vaccinating their children. So moving on, we have already told you how we're going to carry out our mandation. Probably government did not hear us clearly. However, we did provide specific mechanisms on how we're going to roll out this mandate. We would issue digital justification for immunocompromised children in My Sejahtera, for those who couldn't be vaccinated. That came up in our first speaker. And then moving on to my clashes or issues in today's debate, which I have two clashes in today's debate, which are, first, which side provides better public safety or herd immunity, and second of all, which side takes into consideration all stakeholders. So first of all, taxation is not much of a financial burden as what our side has been pushing. So how the government has to prove how the parents will be more incentivized or more motivated to vaccinate the children when they're being taxed. Because first of all, they say they would be taxed based on their economic status, and then next, in government web speaker, they came up with a new point saying that they will increase the tax accordingly. I'm not sure how that would work to actually improve the situation, because they even brought up the example about B40 class of the economic hierarchy, and how would you actually help this B40 B40 class people to actually pay their taxes when they concede to the fact that these people are in dire need of the money in the first place? How are they going to help these people instead? So these are the things that they fail to take into consideration. They fail to take into consideration also the immunocompromised or immunosuppressed children in today's debate, because not all children are fine and healthy, fine and dandy. They may have allergies, they may have issues when after taking certain vaccinations, so on and so forth. So as a step of precaution, side government said that they would do background checks. However, are there any follow-ups after the background check? I think not. Side government did not tell us or specify what they would do after the background checks. Oh, they're just going to impose tax, and the tax would be used for developing the country. In what sector? We also do not know. So moving on, they say that taxation is counterproductive. Why? Because we're giving them the choice, the parents, the choice to actually allow the children to we're giving them the choice to not let the children be vaccinated. And this will this thing has been going around in the debate saying that the children will stay at home, be forced to stay at home. Well, I tell you that this problem will be worse on side government. Why? Because side government has already imposed this taxation, and we know that taxation is counterproductive, and the more people will just pay the tax without any repercussions after that. So it's something that's not going to improve the status quo, whereas it's going to actually encourage not status quo, it's actually going to encourage these parents to not let their children take their vaccinations. No, please warm your seats. So moving on, I've told you today which side provides better public safety, which is our side opposition. And second of all, I've told you which side takes into consideration all stakeholders, which is side government also. So as a fair comparison, I'm going to bring up government's worst case scenario versus side opposition's best case scenario. So first of all, government's best case scenario is that, we as parents, we just pay the taxes and then, okay, our children, one day if they cannot go to school, they're just going to stay at home, and then that's basically it. The numbers of people staying at home will increase because we don't know people as said, government has said people can be influenced by other people's behavior, and so they're not actually reducing the problem. So whereas on opposition's worst case scenario, when we mandate these vaccinations for parents to vaccinate their children, it's because we want to ensure public safety, it's because we want to ensure herd immunity, it's because we want to curb the infection curve. So basically, we provide a better and healthier nation as a whole. We provide a world where the disease is actually curbed to a certain degree, whereas it will be worse on side government. So with that, I have been now never prouder to oppose. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your wonderful speech. Now, while I key in the ballots, you may take a seat for a while. You guys can talk if you want.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes. Reply
Okay.
speech, right?
Yeah, reply. Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. So a very good morning once again to all the members of the floor. And I am standing here again, once again, to deliver a reply speech summarize the debate and tell you why side of opposition won. Okay, so there are a few problems that has occurred in government's case here today. So what happened in government's case is that there were lots and lots of inconsistencies, and there were lots of contradictions in their case. One example of this, as I pointed out earlier in my earlier speech, is how the taxes will be paid using based on their financial status. See, this contradicts with the motion that they with what they have in mind. The government here, they told us that they wanted to increase vaccination. They wanted people to go for vaccination, but with this contradiction in based on financial status that does not burden them, we think that that is very contradictory and does not and shows to us that they do not understand what they are trying to fight for in the first place. Second problem with government side here is that they came and told us the mechanism of background checks very, very late in this debate today. It came up in the whip speech. You have to keep in mind that mechanisms, all this should be addressed in the Prime Minister's speech. Then suddenly, you cannot come up as a whip speaker and give us substantives. So we think that this is too late for the mechanism to come up about how they will do background checks and ask them about how if they know about vaccination. I think we think that this is not the case at all. We think that this is not something that should have happened on their side. We think that it should have come up very much early on the Prime Minister's speech. Moving on, we think that another problem in today's debate, another thing in today's debate is I would like to point out that we, on the opposition side, we cater to the most important stakeholders in this debate today. So let me tell you what happened today. In government side, all they have said was that basically in the first speaker and second speaker speeches, they told us that, okay, we will use the fines to make a better government, to use the fines to make to increase economy or whatnot. We think that increasing this economy, we think that this is actually not what is supposed to be debated today. We think that the the stakeholders here that they cater to here is the government itself. Whereas we here on the opposite side, we are trying to take into account the most important stakeholders, which is the nation and the children themselves. By using mandation, we will force. It will give a very good initiative for these parents to go and vaccinate the children. Whereas on the government side, all they have been discussing about is how, well, sure, they say that it's not about how government will profit, but in a sense, it's how government will make money from these people. It's not about how they will, they did not bring up about how they provide better public safety. This debate was supposed to be about how who can provide the best method to provide public safety, which they did not do in this debate today. Okay, so what have we told you in our speeches today to all of our speakers? We have told you that taxing is not enough. We think that taxing is something, taxing based on what they have said, based on their financial status, we think that it is not enough, and we would go to the extent of mandating it to provide better health, to provide herd immunity and a better health in our nation. Secondly, we have also told you that we have also told you that in our worst case scenario, even if we give a choice to these parents to just stay at home and for the children to stay at home, we think that is better than the worst case scenario on the government side. We think in the government side, that worst case scenario is that people are going to have an option to just pay the taxes and not think about it anymore. Okay, so as proof of this, the Deputy Prime Minister has come up and told you, so what? They told us about our worst case. They said, okay, so what's wrong? You can how do we give incentive? You just make them stay at home, we mandate them staying at home, and that's it. But then he also proceeded to say that you cannot keep children confined in a home. It is not good for their mental health, for the developing state. So this shows that even more contradiction happens even in one speaker himself. We think that this is why the government side here has totally misunderstood the motion and has lots of problems in their case. And we think that is why side opposition has totally won this debate today. And with that, I've never been fired to oppose. Thank you.
All right, since the opposition team has given a reply speech, the government team also has to give a reply speech. So you can give it whenever you are ready.
Okay, one moment. Am I audible?
Yes, you may begin whenever you are ready.
Okay. All right, I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. So the opposition side is so focused on, keep on mentioning how we, the government side, are profiting from this, um, these taxes, these anti-vaccination taxes, and keep on focusing on how we are neglecting the safety of the public health. When in actuality, through these taxes, we are actually enforcing and encouraging safety of public health, as there will be more people who will opt to vaccinate through these taxes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to tell you why we, the government side, um, has won today's debate, and why the opposition side is there's clearly many misunderstandings and misconceptions on what the government side, my prime minister, has proposed today. So, in the opposition's case, they were really focused on how parents, and how a taxing would be counterproductive, as they said, as we because we instated that it would be taxed based on their economical status. However, it is still an incentive, because based on them, how they would choose to mandate everyone to vaccinate except for immunocompromised children, which actually I did mention in my speech earlier, that there will be checks for those children who aren't who aren't able to be vaccinated because maybe they're allergic to these vaccines, or maybe they're not healthy enough. So yes, that I did mention that earlier. So I'm trying to my point is, they're too focused on how it is counterproductive because of what I've stated. It's what the government side has stated. But forcing everyone to just vaccinate, by mandating it, they did mention about the Majatra, about how children can be checked on the MySejahtera app, and how uh, how those children who aren't able to vaccinate, who aren't healthy enough vaccinated, that's how they explain their mechanism. But through this taxation, it's not a form of profiting for economy, because as my whip speaker has mentioned, has rebutted, that we're not profiting the economy, but we are helping the economy in order to battle this pandemic, which for the safety of which is for the betterment of public safety. Because obviously, as I mentioned, by through these taxations, obviously, though not only will it encourage, obviously, needless to say, it will encourage those anti-vaxxers to actually vaccinate their children, as their children's is the most important stakeholder, and I believe quite neglected by the opposition in today's debate, and ensure that they have a future, because they are still young, and they don't know any better. They don't really have a voice, and their parents' decisions is very detrimental in ensuring what kind of future they have ahead of us. So today's debate, is all about the safety, of course, of the public and of the children, because these children are the ones that are not getting vaccinated, and if they don't get vaccinated, then they go out to the public, and it'll also harm public safety. So it that taxations does help with public safety, because as mentioned many times by my prime minister, by me, and even reinstated by my web speaker, that it instilled the mindset of the parents, in order to vaccinate their children for the safety of their children, and also to the close with, which is basically public safety, and of course, needless to say, the safety of the children as well. So that, and I don't think I contradicted myself. I think it was misunderstood, because I was replying to how the deputy leader of opposition mentioned how the incentive of stay home is better than our incentive of taxation. When I said that it's staying at home is not bad for the development, how it's you're just forced to stay in the four walls of your corner, four falls in your own room, you're just isolated there, and that is bad for development. So I was just saying, enforcing how bad it is to stay at home, and why the incentive of staying at home is a worser incentive compared to our taxation. So in today's debate, ladies and gentlemen, we can clearly see that the best case scenario of the government is probably everyone will take their vaccines because that's what they've been mandating. They've been repeatedly this over and over again. Why our worst case scenario is better than their best case scenario is because while it might become a choice, the problem is already tackled by the fact by implementing these taxes. There are background checks on those who do not want a vaccine and their economical status as well. And this is why you should side with government. Thank you.